don't know where. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your patience. I want to go ahead and hopefully be able to gain back a little bit of time. We did have a couple of tech issues, but thank you, everyone, for being present for today's working session. During this working session, I think there were several questions that commissioners had regarding the FY26 budget for Sheriff Bonner, as well as some things that the Finance Department had in the budget for FY26. So we decided to go ahead and do a working session around it. Not we, I will say the two commissioners that asked for it was Commissioner Brooks and Commissioner Wright, to be able to go through each amendment again, to have all questions answered, so we would be prepared for Wednesday actual budget committee meeting. So with that in mind, I will start off then with Ms. Lindsay coming up first and being able to go from there. So we'll start with Ms. Ingram. I guess you're acting as somewhat of a parliamentarian. Do you have a copy of it in front of you? First of all, let me make sure, does everyone have a copy? Okay. Ms. Gillespie, can you make sure everyone has a copy? This is actually their amendments is a list of 1 through 8. Yes, ma'am, if you can start with number 1, please. Commissioner Ford.
Okay. That doesn't work, but my question is,
I think it would be helpful if we do 1 Q&A, 2 Q&A, 3 Q&A, each one. I'm going to defer to Ms. Lindsay. Sheriff Bonner. If it's not working, please, the one with the person.
This one.
Yeah, Ms. Lindsay's is working. If you could switch.
Yeah. Okay. Before we get started, I would like to make a statement to this body, if you don't mind. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Floyd Bonner, Shelby, Sheriff of Shelby County. Thank you for taking this time out this afternoon. I will be brief, but very clear. According to the county charter, the Shelby County Sheriff's Office submitted its 2026 budget to the Mayor's administration for inclusion in the county consolidated budget on April 23rd of 2025. My staff and I presented to this body the exact submission we provided to the mayor. However, when the mayor presented the consolidated budget in May, it was subsequently posted to the county's website, and we learned the following. Our submission had been materially altered. The consolidated budget did not include the budget of vacancies, MOUs covering the positions at step 1, nor did it account for the required step increases under our existing MOU agreements. Our submissions did not include a salary restriction or vacancy savings. Yet the consolidated budget reflected over $50 million in such restrictions. Our request budget modification totaling $16.1 million is critical to fulfill the statutory duties of my office and were entirely excluded. These actions appear to be a violation of the county charter and applicable to the state statute concerning the independence of the sheriff's office. More importantly, I did not consent to reduction, modifications to our submitted budget, specifically personnel budget. The consolidated budget also included a 3% across the board raise for all county employees and raises below $40,500, which I am wholeheartedly in support of. While these items were not a part of our submission, several of our employees currently earn below that amount, and the bargaining agreements mandate that they receive the same general wage increase provided to other county employees. As such as these compensation adjustments should be funded by the county general fund, just as they are for every other division. This includes an increase in position control budget for both filled and vacant positions. My office should not be expected to reduce or eliminate vacant positions to fund pay increase introduced by the mayor's administration, should this body vote to approve them. After the consolidated budget was reported and these changes became apparent, we were instructed by the budget chair to submit a formal budget amendment to restore items originally included in our submission. Accordingly, we submitted those motions to amend the budget through the Budget Finance Committee. Additionally, our original submission included proposed change to salary schedules for our corrections deputies, allowing them to top out in 3 years instead of 5, bringing them into alignment with the Deputy Sheriff's Association. A resolution to ratify the MOU amendment with ASME was brought before this body budget subcommittee on June the 4th. Respectfully, as a duty elected constitutional officer, I do not report to the mayor's office, nor do my employees. While we welcome constructive dialogue and difference of opinion, neither I or my staff will engage in meaningless debates with members of the mayor's administration concerning our budget submission or any other matter as it relates to the operations of my office. If this honorable body has specific questions regarding the sheriff's office original budget submission or the associated amendments motion, we are prepared to answer them. Otherwise, I respectfully ask a vote up or down on our original submission and the motion, or the motions be amended. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Bonner, for that. In the meanwhile, just because the system will not let me see who may have a question, Ms. April is going to take care of that for me as well, so I apologize for that. But if you do have a question, until we get the system up, raise your hand so I at least can acknowledge you. So, Madam Parliamentarian, if you can read item number 1, please.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair.
Do you want it? Okay.
Or should I say something?
You can, Mr. Ingram, if you can hold just a moment and allow Commissioner Ford to respond.
All right, thank you. I'll be brief, Sheriff. Thank you for those words. And I gave you and Ms. Lindsay a copy of something from 2 years ago, and I think it needs to be addressed. Some people are not going to agree, but it needs to be said unless I have proof otherwise. I just want to bring alert and notice regarding this working group, because when it was brought to my attention that a working group was going to be done, and I listened to what was said, when it comes to any budgetary item, much less the sheriff's budget, Sheriff and CL Lindsay, I gave you a copy of a memo that a former chair sent 2 years ago regarding a working group that met. And that group met on a Sunday afternoon. I do not have validation that it was sunshine and there were notes taken and everything else. And it resulted in decisions that affected public safety and can arguably be the meeting 2 years ago that served as the genesis of the large salary restrictions that you referenced, Sheriff. Now we're back here again. I'm glad it's in a sunshine manner this time. But Sheriff, why are we really here? Your CAO brought a motion that should be considered because one can make the argument that since the sheriff has now shown his hand, now people want to have a discussion before the 23rd. If this wasn't brought, there would be no work session. I'm going to say this real quick and I'm done. I see this as an opportunity by members of the administration and some commissioners to get you, Sheriff, to voluntarily agree to lower your maintenance of efforts. We've seen this movie before. I hope you don't do that and don't fall for that trick. Moreover, it's interesting that your maintenance of effort as written by state law that you referenced, is being compromised through legal maneuvers that have increased your salary restrictions heavily over the last 3 years. I still think the cake is baked, but hopefully some people got some conscience, and they can look at this. My last statement, I hope this does get considered. I sincerely hope that on the 23rd, there's not an individual that's going to come with one big motion and scoop up everything and then have 6 other people go along with it that are going to affect you. And I'll say this for anybody that's not here, if you're an elected official and you're not being done right by the administration, if you don't take legal action, don't come crying to me July the 1st saying, look what they did to me. And I'm going to leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ford. Ms. Ingram.
Yes, ma'am. Item 1, reconcile the SCSO's original budget submission by returning to FY 2025 funding levels as a baseline for comparison with the FY 2026 consolidated budget presented by the mayor.
Ms. Lindsay.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. This first item, basically what it does is, the total is a negative $236,262.35 because we're removing the revenue. When our office initially submitted the budget, we submitted the budget under Oracle EPM, that is an Exhibit B. And the revenue that we budgeted was like $5.5 million. However, in the consolidated budget, it was increased to $5,795,000. Also, this item, what it does is for any vacant positions, it brings them to the step 1 level if they are part of a memorandum of understanding. And so basically what that means, if we have a vacant position that a more senior, tenured employee once held, and the position is now vacant, then that number becomes the step 1 amount. And just so happens that's a negative number to get us to this very first item. So that's why item number 1 is a negative $236,262.35. All we did was we removed the revenue because it exceeded what we put in our budget, and then it aligned all of our vacant positions to the step 1 amount at the fiscal year 2025 level before any 3% increase, before the $40,500 increase. Is just aligning fiscal year 2025 to the correct PCB amount.
Commissioners, because our system still is not up, raise your hand if you have a question. Okay. No one. Commissioner Ford.
Ms. Lindsay, Sheriff, thank you. All right, I'm looking at number 1 again. And the first thing that comes to my attention is the part that says, for comparison with the FY 2026 consolidated budget presented by the mayor. The sheriff highlighted this, and now I see this in number 1. And I do know that there have been challenges where, I'm going to go back to the charter real quick, and I'm looking at the charter sections as to mayoral duties and the budget section. And I'm looking at some of the parts of the 2 sections that are in 3.07 of the charter. And one of the things that we should remember is below, and I'm going to state it on the record, all elected county officials, not appointed people. I know appointed people want that power. But it says all elected county officials and clerks of court shall submit their budgets to the county mayor for the purpose of that office submitting a consolidated budget. I'm looking at your number 1. When I had my conversations with the sheriff and the CAO, it was stated that they did exactly that. Now my question is, and this is to the budget chair, or maybe I need to ask Ms. Ingram through the chair. Can you speak in a capacity for the county attorney, or are you down here in another capacity, Ms. Ingram?
Marcy Ingram, County Attorney's Office. I'm down here as County Attorney's Office.
Okay, so are you familiar, through the chair, are you familiar with the 3.07 that I'm referencing?
Marcy Ingram, County Attorney's Office, yes, sir.
All right, so how is the administration in compliance with the charter with 3.07 A and B when I've already stated that they shall submit their budgets to the county mayor for the purpose of the office consisting of consolidated budget, but there are particular highlights in there that were also stated on record that there were significant changes. So that's the challenge right there. Are we even following the charter? And have we been following the charter over the last 3 years when it comes to these consolidated budgets? Because a reasonable person could say that it's not been followed over the last 3 years, not just with the sheriff's office, but with other divisions for the purposes of balancing the budget off of the backs of the electeds through the words of the appointed people. Are we following the charter, basically?
Marcy Ingram, County Attorney's Office, that was a loaded question.
I made it simple by saying, are we following the charter? I simplified it.
Yes, sir. I think you have to read more than one section of the charter. Part of the charter requires the elected officials to submit a consolidated budget to the mayor, but then the charter also allows the commission to set out budget procedures. And as part of that budget procedure process that you all adopt by resolution, you've asked the mayor to provide you all with a proposed budget. And to the best of my knowledge, the last 3 years, that's what the mayor has done, is provided the commission with a proposed budget. And then the commission comes in and you can amend, you can accept that budget, as the charter says, without amendments, or you can make amendments. And in the last 3 years, what you have done is made amendments to the proposed budget that you've asked the mayor to provide you all. So yes, we have been in compliance with the charter in the last 3 years.
And Madam Chair, I will not go back and forth because we have 7 other items, but I could easily go back with Ms. Ingram and say there's something else that y'all have missed that y'all haven't done, but I'm not going to do all of that to spare some of the time so we can get through the other items. But I would sincerely disagree that the charter has been followed by the administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ford. And Commissioners, just FYI, the system should be up, so if you are to want to request to speak, I will be able to see it on my end. All right, any additional questions or comments around number 1? Commissioner Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Does the administration have something that they want to speak on in reference to number 1? If we could do that while we're going through this, and that way we can sort of clear up the discrepancies, not a back and forth, but if it's something we need to point out. Okay, thank you.
All right. I'm sorry. Was that it, Commissioner Brooks? Okay, thank you. No additional comments around number 1? Oh, I'm sorry. Now I see you, Commissioner Mills.
Thank you. My phone does not, microphone does not work. I just, up front, all these items on here, are you statutorily, do you have to fund every one of these? Just so we know what we're working with as we go through this, whatever we're doing today.
Okay, excuse me, Commissioner, I'm not understanding your question.
Are you required by law to do all these on these requests?
I think the question would be, are you required by law?
Am I required by law? Okay. Do these have to be funded by law?
It's under, if we start talking about maintenance of effort, where we are versus what the mayor is proposing, I would say yes, okay? But I'm not an attorney and obviously consulting with attorneys, but I would say yes.
Okay, because I go back to all this with the state law that was passed, the state law that wasn't passed. We're backed in a corner here. doing what we should have been doing all along, is the way I'm looking at this. And so I kind of wanted to get an overview of all before we move forward individually. I guess we're studying these more. I'm not exactly sure what today's, I mean, I heard from the meeting before, but, so I guess I would ask Attorney Ingram on that.
Marcy Ingram, County Attorney's Office. Commissioner Mills, I would have to take a look and provide analysis. I mean, like, for example, number 3, that's not something that's required by state law. So I would have to look at these individually and get back with you.
Okay, because that would save a lot of time if they're required by law, then that's kind of shorten our time here. Thank you for now.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Commissioner Sugarman, you're in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so the maintenance of effort in 2025, if we go and amend this, all these amendments, would that bring us back up to the 2025? Or would it exceed the maintenance of effort of 2025 if we add all of these amendments?
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. Commissioner Sugarman, the maintenance of effort for 2025. One second. What I wanted to say is that in the mayor's consolidated budget for fiscal year 2026, the maintenance effort is actually below the fiscal year 2025 amount. But to answer your specific question, then yes, these items would take us above the maintenance of effort for fiscal year 2025.
Follow-up question, by how much?
The total of the amendments, so it's like 70, I don't have my second page here, $75,970,687.56.
Okay, so for clarification, if we amend all of these amendments and add these to the 2026 budget, then it will take us over the 2025 maintenance of effort that was budgeted in 2025. Is that correct? Is that what I'm hearing?
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sugarman. Commissioner Thornton, you're in the queue.
Thank you, Chair. Just to make sure I'm following the questions that you just had with Commissioner Sugarman. So the proposed total here is around 16 million. It would take us over.
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. Commissioner
Sorry,
Thornton.
I see the 75 million.
Okay, thank
good.
you.
So, and the way that maintenance of efforts work, so if we are to approve all of the $75 million proposed amendments, that would set a new maintenance of effort moving forward, correct?
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. Yes, Commissioner Thornton.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thornton. Commissioner Ford, you're in the queue.
This should be my last comment on number 1. So I've heard at least 4 commissioners bring up maintenance of effort, including myself. Commissioner Mills, I'm going to piggyback on you talking about the bills up in Nashville because one of them, if it would have passed, we wouldn't be here dealing with this. It would already be done. But it's interesting how, for the last couple of years at least, we've been talking about the maintenance of effort, dealing with this 2025 and now 26 consolidated budget. And I've gone back and listened to the tapes and everything else, with the exception of one time for this fiscal year. We talk about yours all the time. You got people. I'm talking about the overpaid, underqualified appointeds saying, well, we took. I know you were there when they started talking about what they took from public safety and what another branch of the executive said, and we gave. and said, are we even going to discuss this $18 million more that's in the budget? And it was silent. It might have been silent on purpose just to get a budget passed. Well, guess what? It's gone up again. And I don't think people, I questioned 2 weeks ago, that means that mayor's maintenance of effort will go up significantly higher again with no questions asked. But they're asking every question about you and want you to make a sacrifice and want you to lower your maintenance of effort. But they want what they want, and their maintenance of effort will go up by the millions. And it's disheartening that there's not enough people even wanting to have a question about what's in it. They just want to say, we're going to mess with your budget, but give the other branch of government what they want. That's not doing your job, ladies and gentlemen. That's being lazy. And I hope you're not being given your marching orders by another branch of government on the backs of public safety. I will be glad to bring it up, Sheriff, because what's happening here in number one, you're just asking to go back to what you had before. That's all you're asking for. But none of these other folks are asking, well, let's go look at how large that this item, as well as others, get a consideration. And I sincerely hope that there's not a commissioner here to bring a motion to sweep up everything in one vote like the last 2 years have happened. It was Lowry last year, and with all due respect, it was a Whaley Wright combo the year before that. And those two things triggered the maintenance of, the salary restrictions being significantly hard on y'all. And y'all got those documents. So let's just see where we're at. I'm done with number one. I'll probably only got 2 other questions through 2 through 8, Chair. So I won't be getting in every single time. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ford. Ms. Lindsay?
Thank you, Chairwoman Clay Bibbs. I made a mistake in my explanation, so if you all could hold that explanation that I did for item number 1, it's really for item $50,104,884. The net expenditure for what's included in the mayor's proposed budget or consolidated budget is actually $204,818,210. So that's why I've completed this summary for you. Exhibit A1 is a summary. So if you look at the 6th column from the left, you'll see that that's what those changes are, bringing us to what we submitted to what the mayor's office delivered in the proposed budget. So the variance was about $49,754,424. And I apologize that I didn't lead off with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lindsay. I don't see any additional commissioners in queue regarding item number 1. Ms. Ingram, if you can read item number 2, please.
Item 2, budget vacant positions covered by memoranda of understanding, MOUs, and special salary schedules at year 1 values, $493,094.35, and reduce unanticipated revenue increases not included in the original submission, negative $256,832.
Ms. Lindsay?
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer. Just for the record, I'll just restate that basically this puts our revenue back at what we submitted at the $5,538,000 instead of what was included in the mayor's office consolidated budget of $5,795,000. And then it also aligns the vacant positions for MOU-related positions at step 1. So again, if we had a tenured employee that was earning $62,000 and that position became vacant, then that position came down to like $48,753 for a corrections deputy. So in this instance, bringing us to the memorandum of understanding step 1 levels, it actually brings us down. So that's why this is a negative $236,000, because one is dealing with revenue and one is dealing with an expense.
I don't see any commissioners in queue regarding questions for this one. I think Director Thornton?
Gerald Thornton, Director of Human Resources.
I guess I'm trying to understand what Ms. Lindsay is saying. So are you asking, or are you saying that the position should stay at $62,000 or should go back down to the $48,000?
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. In my example, I said if a tenured employee left and that position is vacant, then that position would go back to the step one level, which is why this is a negative amount for the expenditures. So no, we're not asking that the position remain at the 60-something thousand. We're asking that it comes down to step one.
Give an example. What happens is, like Ms. Lindsay says, if, let's say hypothetically, you have a sheriff deputy, he's making $80,000 a year. And then the sheriff needs to fill that position. Let's say that position's being paid $60,000 a year. The position goes back to the $60,000 a year because that more senior officer is no longer in that position. Now, if he decides to hire someone, sometimes we get retirees who come back, then we will actually fund that position or bring that person back in at the level in which they left at. So I'm trying to understand from the director of HR's perspective, why is this even an issue before this board today?
Ms. Lindsay.
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. Also in this combination is vacant positions that are not at step one, that are actually below step one. So it's a combination, Director Thornton. So there may be some positions, like in fiscal year 2025, that was carried forward to 2026 for a corrections deputy, as an example, that may be budgeted at $43,000, and so they should go up to the $48,000, those vacant positions. But then if you have a position where the person left and that person was making $60,000, then that vacant position should come down. I think we're saying the same thing here.
Gerald Thornton, Director of Human Resources. We are saying the same thing, so I think this is a for naught issue before this honorable board here today. Thank you.
I do have a commissioner that's in the queue, but I do think, well, I'll come back for my comment. Commissioner Sugarman, you're in the queue.
Thank you, Chair. This might be something that you might be addressing, so this seems like a moot. But if we actually use this or keep this amendment, what will be the impact on the budget, if any? And therefore, maybe we need to just look at this and just take it out. So can you address that, or does finance need to address that?
Gerald Thornton, Director of Human Resources, I think the proper term would be to strike it because this is a non-issue at this point due to the fact that once the person is rehired, then the sheriff does not bring that person in at the higher level. And also, give an example. What you find out with some electeds, and I'm sure the sheriff doesn't do this, but you'll find where the electeds would actually have 25 vacant positions. And instead of them filling the most recent position, they'll go down, they'll fill number 26, 27, 28 if the position has not been fully funded. And therefore, it causes problems both to HR as well as finance. And it seems like, and I hate to use the term common sense would dictate, then you would fill those positions first and foremost that are fully funded. But instead, the electeds play around with the budgets and say, well, this position hasn't been fully funded in the last 3 years, so let me fill this position. And then now finance as well as HR, you need to do all this extra funding. So to me, it seems though you would fill the position that's most recently vacated, and then you go down the list. Not to get into Director Thompson's bailiwick, but if the sheriff has 300 vacant positions, hypothetically, that are available to him, then why would he go down to number 340 to try to fill a position that may not be fully funded? And that's how we play games around here within Shelby County government. So fill the first 300 that are fully funded, and then deep dive into those other positions that have not been fully funded. And I think this is what, to an extent, the way I see it from the Director of HR, is in that when it comes to various MOU positions, that the position may not have been fully funded. It may be $2,000, $3,000 less than what should be in the position. And so the electeds who have these MOUs would then in turn go and dig into those positions and say, I need more money, although they have vacant positions. Not to practice law for Ms. Marcy over there, but yet and still, I think Director Commissioner Mills asked the question from a legal perspective. Again, I'm not practicing law, but none of these positions outside of maybe number 7 are required by law to be funded. 3% increase is not required. MOUs are not required because of the fact that MOUs are not recognized in the state of Tennessee, although we do recognize them here in Shelby County. The $40,500, and we appreciate you, Commissioner Sugarman, for the $20.77, but that is not something that's required by law. So everything else you see on this agenda today is not required by law. not by operational law. And at any time, you all are required to actually vote upon these various resolutions in order to give these increases. So I heard by operation of law. The answer is no. By operation of law, none of this right here is required. Thank you. Gerald Thornton, Director of Human Resources, and not an attorney for Shelby County Government.
I'm going to go to Chairman Whaley, and then I'll come back to you, Ms. Lindsay.
All
Chairman
right,
Whaley.
yep, thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm just going to try to make a brief general comment as I've got to run to a previously scheduled appointment, but just both for the Sheriff's Office and the administration to hear just my perspective on this is, one, I'd like to avoid Groundhog Day and going through the same dilemma every year because I think I understand the different positions we're hearing, but ultimately we need to find a solution and pass a budget. So as I look at these requests, and again, this is just my perspective, but I want to make sure you both can hear it, which is that there are some items here that are quite reasonable and align with what we're doing more broadly, particularly around the minimum salary threshold, around salary increases that we've offered to employees across the county. So I think there are some things that are contained within here that we should find a way to make it happen. That said, no matter what amendments we make, we need funding offsets to some degree to make sure that they balance the budget. Now, we would have hoped that that would have been provided on the front end because some of these things should have been, quite frankly, provided on the front end. But we have to deal with it now. So as I look at this, again, there are things that make sense because we've allocated in other ways and they're reasonable requests. But there are some items, particularly around the salary restrictions, that are quite a bit of a challenge for a few reasons. One is that if we set aside those funds, and historically they've not been all spent down, we are essentially holding taxpayer funds and not utilizing them, right? So we're saying we are going to tax you, and then we are acknowledging that we are not going to actually use these funds, which is I don't think that's a good position to be in. Rather, what we say across the board, we set a salary restriction for everybody that says this is historically how hiring has looked, so administratively this is what it's going to look like, and then it's upon us, we can then vote potentially to remove that once you are showing that those positions are being hired. And that's not just for the sheriff's office, that would go for any particular office, because the converse of that is if we remove all salary restrictions across county government, we are holding a pot of funds that we have to go out to our constituents and say, we are taxing you, but we have no use for these funds. They are going to actually sit in a general fund and not be put to use. I'd rather us actually know that we're going to use the funds and then authorize that to happen. So if we were to approve putting $44 million back in, that $44 million has to come from somewhere. And we'd have to make that argument that we are taxing you to set this fund up. So again, I just want to conclude by saying that Sheriff Bonner, I acknowledge a lot of these are very legitimate requests, and Chief Lindsay has done a good job, I think, of reconciling it, making sure that we're catching things that might slip through the cracks. So I want to acknowledge that. But my hope is that instead of going around and around, we can actually find a compromise that is reasonable and doesn't shut the door to any future amendment, but helps us get to a place where we can acknowledge we can make an additional investment here, but also we don't want, $48 million that just sits around is probably a little too far. So that's just my thoughts on it, but just wanted to make sure that since both parties were here, that we can try to work something out here that we can actually vote on, that'll balance out, and we can do a good job for the taxpayer. All right, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chairman Whaley. Ms. Lindsay.
Thank you, Chairwoman Clay Bibbs. I'm going to direct you to Exhibit A, page 11 of 34, because I want to clearly show you why this item, number 2, is needed. So if you look at the bottom of the page, there's a position number 880925, and I hate that I have to get to this level of specificity, but I think it's needed when we have these interjections that are not helpful. So this is a corrections deputy position, and in the fiscal year 2025, it is budgeted at $45,798. However, the step 1 special salary schedule requires that position to be budgeted at $48,543.36. So also, if you go up two more. Position number 860918. That's the corrections deputy position that's vacant. Currently budgeted at $58,506. Well, if the position is vacant, it should be at $48,543.36. So what this exhibit does and what this amendment does, it aligns the positions at step one. So therefore, the amendment is needed.
Commissioner Brooks, you're in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So can the administration tell us with what Ms. Lindsay has said and this amendment, what impact would that have on the budget? The consolidated proposed budget?
If one of you wouldn't mind allowing Director Thompson, Deputy Director Thompson, to respond, that, okay.
Michael Thompson, Deputy CFO, Shelby County Government. Commissioner Brooks, to your question, I would like to make a statement, but also ask a question of the Sheriff's Department if possible. In the Sheriff's budget, you have approximately 2,156 full and part-time positions. And you have approximately 700 of those that remain vacant throughout every fiscal year. I would like to ask CO Lindsay if she's familiar with a process called the Sheriff's Sweep that was historically done in the Sheriff's Department to ensure that every position going into the next fiscal year has the proper amount of budget within their entire consolidated position count. So that's the question, but I'll briefly explain so that she can also chime in as well. On an annual basis, CO Lindsay had her staff provide finance with an understanding of where each position needed to be budgeted. This was done in the past when a former employee, I won't call their name, but was here. She provided me with information, and we went in and we aligned all of the positions exactly where the Sheriff's Department needed them so that the proper amount of funding was in there for each MOU step position. This is something that we have historically done and will continue to do. In fact, through a series of emails on last week, we worked with the Sheriff's Department to try and accomplish this process so that we can mitigate much of the conversation that we're having today. I'm happy to continue to work with the Sheriff's Department to make sure their positions are aligned to ensure that FY26 budgets are adequate.
Commissioner Brooks, does that answer your question?
No.
Commissioner, well, you had 7 seconds left. Commissioner Sugarman, you're in the queue.
Okay, thank you, Chair. No, it does not. And so I asked that question a few minutes ago as well. So what is the impact of implementing this amendment and not implementing this amendment on the budget? How does it impact the budget if we decide to vote it up or vote it down is the question, I think.
Michael Thompson, Deputy CFO, Shelby County Government. Are you specifically talking about the $256,832, or which amendment are you talking about?
We're on item number 2, so we're referring to that amount.
Okay. This $236 in this case would, just impact the budget by $256,000. It was just
Okay,
be
so
that.
my question, let me go rephrase the question. If we keep it at the value of $493,094.35 versus the $256,832, okay, does that have an impact, or is it, because from my perspective, I'm listening to Director Thornton, and he was stating that it is automatically the positions, when someone leaves a position, it automatically goes down back to level one. That's my understanding. And so, again, my understanding then becomes, we can just delete this. If I can get, if I cannot understand the impact, if there's no impact, if there is an impact, then maybe we should delete it. So this is going to determine how I vote, in other words.
Michael Thompson, Deputy CFO. This will have no impact. It's a moot point. Based upon how their positions work, this is a moot point. This should not even be on here as an amendment. I mean, in totally in line with everything Director Thornton said, this is a moot point, should not be included at all.
Ms. Lindsay.
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. I want everyone to recognize this is a negative expenditure amount. We're taking, and so when Mr. Director Thornton is saying that when a position becomes vacant, he's talking about the hiring process. When we bring in a person, that person is going to make the lowest amount as step one. However, the positions need to be budgeted accordingly. This is a budget amendment. So if you have, and this item clearly outlines that, so the sweep process that Director Thompson spoke about, this is actually that. It's aligning the positions with the correct budget amount. That's exactly what this is doing.
Thank you, Ms. Lindsay. Commissioner Ford, you're back in the queue.
Well, this is my first time on number 2, but thank you. Yeah. I got one question for you real quick before I ask you about what you just opened the door on. What you're presenting in front of us was approved by the elected sheriff, is that correct?
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, yes.
Okay, so I don't need an appointed person saying what the elected sheriff through the CAO should or should not have in their proposed amendments and motions and everything like that. That's completely out of line. And what's also completely out of line is us getting a comptroller letter that specifically states what you just said on record regarding negative expenditures, and I'm looking at that letter now. Essentially, the comptroller wrote saying the recommendation of budgeting negative expenditures is a no-no. And I don't think this is the first time that we've had that happen. So can you, and you're familiar with that comptroller letter, correct? Yes. Okay. It's okay to say if you know it or not.
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office.
Okay.
Yes, Commissioner Ford, I'm familiar with that letter, but
Yes.
this
I'm circling back to number 2.
you're speaking of, I believe, the salary restriction or vacancy savings. I'm specifically saying, hey, we're trying to reconcile our positions. We're trying to make sure that every position is at the correct budget for step 1. That is all amendment number 2 is doing. So for someone to say it's mute, it's not a valid point. That's incorrect.
Look,
Because we need our positions.
I was told that something was irrelevant until they got caught having a $9.5 million hole in the budget. So next time you're told that it's moot or irrelevant, that means you're spot on, okay? It's okay, Ms. Lindsay. So, look, you got the sheriff next to you. You don't have to worry about somebody from the administration next to you saying or doing whatever to try to intimidate you or whatever the case may be. Just remember, intimidation only works when the administration says it. So my final question is, going back to number 2, and the reason why I brought the comptroller letter up, Ms. Lindsay, is because I have a concern, and is that last number negative, that negative 256?
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office, yes, because
Right.
it reduces revenue and it also reduces an expenditure amount.
And that's why I referenced the comptroller letter, because in several of the details on his page 3, future submissions don't need to have these negative items in place. And what I don't want is the sheriff division to be blamed for any of these particular items. So I was not going to say anything about number 2, but since you opened the door on that, and I had to ask you whether this was approved by the elected sheriff, I just don't need somebody who's not elected to say what the head law enforcement officer of Shelby County can and cannot do. That's what the electorate decided whether they wanted him in or not 1 or 2 people. I'm done.
Thank you, Commissioner Ford. I don't see any additional commissioners on item number 2. Madam Parliamentarian, can you read item number 3, please?
Item 3, increase all positions currently budgeted below $40,500 to meet the county's established minimum salary threshold. Total, $1,423,792.25.
Thank you, Ms. Ingram. Ms. Lindsay.
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. And again, I'm going to start each point with, when you look at Exhibit B that the Shelby County Sheriff's Office submitted in their budget back in March, and you compare it to the submission that the mayor's office sent, we did not include bringing employees up to the $40,500. So basically, we're identifying how much this costs for our office. We want to make sure that when a budget is adopted, it has the correct amount per position. So that is the purpose of this, and that item cost $1,423,792.25.
Thank you, Ms. Lindsay. So my question to administration is, the budget, because I don't see any commissioners in queue, so that's why I'm going to take an opportunity to ask this question. So the budget that was presented to us on May 14th, did it not include this amount?
It did. So again, it's become a moot issue. I'm sorry, Gerald Thornton, Director of Human Resources. I appreciate it, Sheriff. And that is, this $40,500 should be $40,501.25, thanks to Commissioner Sugarman. Goes back to the $20.77, which you all have already approved via 3 readings of an ordinance. So this is in the current budget. So again, this is a moot issue.
So I see finance back there shaking their head. So it is actually listed. So obviously there's a discrepancy or a disconnect here around it. So
Michael Thompson, Deputy CFO. It is in the budget, and Commissioner, Budget Chairwoman Beals, what C.L. Lindsay was just saying is that she was just telling you, or telling the commission, how much it would cost if they put it in their budget, but we put it in the mayor's budget, which is the same thing. So it's all in there. Totally a moot point again. Like, it's in the budget. And she's seen it, by the way.
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. Deputy Director Thompson, when we spoke via email as late as Friday, I gave you one position number that was not budgeted at step 1. I gave you positions numbers that were not at the $40,500. So to sit here and say that it's in there and we are not seeing it, that is not correct.
Ms. Gillespie, do you have the opportunity to put something up? Okay.
Point of information.
Commissioner Sugarman?
Okay, are you going to pull up your proposed budget? That way we can look at it, as commissioners, we have our books. And if so, just state the page number.
Michael Thompson, Deputy CFO, Shelby County Government. I'm going to pull up positions in the Sheriff's Department, but you can also turn to the Sheriff section and look at account 5102 as well.
Alicia Lindsay, point of clarification. The reason this is very important, if you look at the second page of Exhibit C, for fiscal year 2026, under account 5102, that number is $137,773,000 compared to $135,295,000 in fiscal year 2025. That's only an increase of $2.4 million. If all of these items were in here, that is not even 3%. So and all of these things cannot be true. It can't be true that our positions are budgeted at step 1 for vacant positions. It can't be true that the positions are budgeted at $40,500 and it equals this number. So something has happened between when the mayor's proposed budget was issued, and I want to say June 5th, whenever the second proposed budget came out. I think there have been changes made since then. So we're just trying to make sure that our budget is our budget. We don't want to wake up in July and have a different budget.
While Mr. Thompson is looking that up, Commissioner Wright, you in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just a comment about the purpose of this meeting. This is what the purpose was: for us to have time and space to talk through these issues, because there's multiple. And there's a lot. There's a lot on this page of amendments where what the sheriff's office is saying and what the administration is saying are not, it's not on the same page. And so if we tried to do all of this next Monday, we'd be here for forever. So I hope we can get to some conclusions. However, I just don't know, Madam Chair, that we're necessarily well-equipped as a body to adjudicate these kinds of minute issues between not only the sheriff's office, but it's also the, like, what expertise would I need to have to know whether the trustees' projections or the administration's projections, which one is true? I can hear them both. But that, what was it, $9 million difference? I don't know how, as a part-time commissioner, how I'm supposed to know with certainty which office is accurate, or if it's somewhere in between. I have no idea. I hope with this meeting we can find some spirit of collaboration to where we are working together, not against each other. And I'm talking to all of us, because we've got to get this passed. I don't say that to mean we just need to pass anything. I don't mean that at all. I want to pass something that is appropriate to what your need is and appropriate for the county and the county taxpayer. So that's my hope here. I'm thankful, Madam Chair, for this time to discuss it. But that's why we're here, is we have a lot where we're not syncing up, and we've only got 1 week left to figure it out. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. Commissioner Brooks, you're in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my comments, I don't have questions, sort of along the lines of Commissioner Wright, and the interest of public welfare, integrity, and trust. It's apparent that we'll be here for a long time going back and forth trying to reconcile, and I don't, like Commissioner Wright, I definitely don't have that expertise. My suggestion or my question would be, is it possible for the parties, the Sheriff's Department and the administration, to sit down offline and work out these differences and then come back? I mean, I know that you're not going to all agree, but some of these, it may be just an error of omission, or it could be an error just of misinterpretation. But it appears to me that we are airing our laundry in public, and we need to have this all worked out. I mean, just for the general welfare, integrity in our process.
Thank you, Commissioner Brooks. Ms. Lindsay.
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. I have a question for the administration. My question is, did the 5102 account for Fund 031 change from when the mayor's budget was presented to today? Did it go up? Did it go down? And if so, what is that number today?
So, Ms. Lindsay, I think in the process, first let's tackle the presentation that's being pulled up so that we'll be able to do it. And then after that is tackled, then Mr. Thompson can answer your question. But I do want to have an opportunity, since there's time left on the clock, to Commissioner Wright's point that I think that was the whole purpose of today, is because I think that's why you and Commissioner Brooks requested this meeting, is so that you could go back and forth, so that other commissioners can hear, so that we can actually be on the same page around, hopefully, I will say this, hopefully getting the administration and the sheriff on the same page as to where the disconnect is regarding the numbers. I hope that is the intent of today. because we do have to have a passed budget before July 1. We're still on number two. No, we're actually on number three. I apologize. We're on number three, and we're waiting on something to be pulled up on the screen to reference. Commissioner Ford, can you press your microphone so I
Thank
can
you.
hear you?
While they bring that up, can they also reference exactly where all of this money is located within this proposed budget? Is it spread across, or is it in one particular line? We need to know that for the purposes of Wednesday, because this was brought up for other divisions, and those electeds that were here stated that they didn't see it in their budget. So I'm just asking, where is it located, but as well? So if that can be answered.
Deputy Director Thompson, did you hear the question?
I'm gonna have to have that question repeated. I had the sheriff and officer in my ear, sorry.
Where's through the chair?
Yes, sir.
Where specifically can the electeds find this 40,500 threshold within the budget book? That was the question.
Michael Thompson, Deputy CFO. I will go ahead and answer that question briefly. In each section where we provided a line item budget, that amount is within account 5102. So if you look at account 5102, and you compare the FY25 amount to the FY26 amount, so if you look at page 61 for the Sheriff's Department, and let me know when you're there, so we can make sure we're talking apples to apples. Page 61, Sheriff's Department.
Is this the one that was online, or the new one with the new pages?
Oh, either one,
Either
but
one,
the one that's
with the
online.
5102.
Yeah, it's fine, yeah. Either one is fine. Michael Thompson, Deputy CFO. So what I have on the screen here represents the Sheriff's Office. I was just corrected. This is the Sheriff's Office, not the Sheriff's Department. Forgive me, Sheriff's Office. Positions. And here you'll be able to see and IT may have to come, my computer just froze.
While Mr. Thompson is bringing that up, Commissioner Sugarman, you're in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so it shows in the budget book that in 2025, 5102 was 135 million, and 2026, 137, which is approximately a difference of 2.48. And so my question then becomes, is that enough to bring the people at the bottom to the 40,500 mark? And that is to Director Director Thornton, or, okay, the Finance Department. Michael Thompson. That's enough? Is that sufficient? Okay. Chief Tipton? Oh. Is 2.48 sufficient to bring the bottom up to, okay, thank you.
Yes, yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
All right, our chair had to step out. We're back to, well, go ahead, Ms. Lindsay.
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. If you take that variance of $2,480,201 and divide it by $135,293,698, that is 1.8%. So all of these things cannot be true. It cannot be true that our positions are budgeted at step one. It can be true that there's a $40,500 raise up to that amount for all of our positions. It's not even 3%. But I believe that 5102 number has been updated. It just hasn't been pushed out because they have been working in test. And now that information is not, available to everyone.
Michael Thompson, Deputy CFO, to answer CO Lindsay's comment. The 3% was not added to vacant positions. It was only placed on full and part-time field positions. Only full and part-time. We did not include 3% on vacant positions.
Chief Lindsay.
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. So just to be clear, when we have vacant positions that are covered by a memorandum of understanding, those positions, whether filled or vacant, no, if they're vacant, should be budgeted at step one. Because if we have to hire someone, those positions need to be budgeted at step one. We can't hire somebody at a lower position. So what that causes is an inefficiency and ineffective operations of our department, because we're looking for positions where we can put somebody in, and the budget is not sufficient to fill that position. And our HR director is here, and she can elaborate on that if you like, because she has more of a perspective on that. Her department handles the onboarding of employees for the Shelby County Sheriff's Office.
Michael Thompson, Deputy CFO, Shelby County Government. The way that the Sheriff's Department manages their 700 vacant positions is that they use the funding within those to ensure that these positions that need to be funded at a certain step are funded. At any given point in time, they will sweep the money from another position and put it where it's needed. It's a normal process that the Sheriff's Department developed many, many years ago in order to maintain their position complement.
While you all are talking, let me ask Mr. Thornton, I'm sorry, Director Thompson, you're talking to. So I'm hearing that you all have a different process then. So if the process is different, doesn't that mean that the dollar amount, is it different?
Michael
It's not going to
Thompson,
be the same?
Michael Thompson, Deputy CFO. The actual sheriff's budget increased this year to accommodate for 3% and 40,500. So you can see the increases in the sheriff's budget. So it is there. I'm not sure why the questions are arising, but there was an increase in the sheriff's budget that was funded by the general fund, and it's evident.
Well, the questions are arising because you all have different positions here. And, I don't want to categorize them. But, we need to get to a point where we can make a decision on something. And we're not getting there.
Okay, where are we with this item 3? Are we still, I have no other commissioners in queue. Go ahead.
Michael Thompson, Deputy CFO. I was just going to show you the positions in the system. I'm having challenges getting the system to work, though, unfortunately. Yeah, it's, yeah.
I guess I would say that these first 3, well, at least these 2 and 3, so far the administration is saying it's already there. So, from what I'm hearing, if we pass this, it'd be basically budget neutral if you're saying it's already exists.
Michael Thompson, Deputy CFO, if you pass this, it will put an additional amount in the budget that's already there. So I would not pass this because it's already there.
Commissioner Thornton.
Okay, if we're following your train of thought, how much are you saying of what they are asking in the 75 million is already there?
Michael Thompson, Deputy CFO. Number 3 is already there. Number 4 is already there. Number 7, I would not recommend you all do. I would not recommend that. Number 6 is not there. That is something that they are specifically asking you. And number 8 is it's not there, but that can be accomplished with an increase to their vacancy savings. So if I had to go down this list, the ones that you all can consider would be, you can consider 4, 6, and in order to fund number 8, I would consider an increase in their vacancy savings.
Okay, so I feel like it was kind of all over the place. So my question
I'm
was.
happy to repeat.
What is not already within the budget, or maybe I think I phrased it the other way. You said that, that there was some redundancy, that things on this list were already factored into your budget as presented. Can you just, points 1 through 8, just be clear about that? Which ones are you saying are mute because they're already factored in?
Michael Thompson, Deputy CFO, Shelby County Government. I would say number 2 is mute, 3 is mute, 5 is mute, 7 is mute.
Okay, so 1, 4, 6, and 8 remain on this list. Of course, I'm sure, Chief Lindsay, that you have a rebuttal to that. Yeah. Are we still on the same page? 2, 3, 5, 7 are all in your budget? Okay.
Now, may I say something as well? Number 1, that was just a reconciliation that kind of flowed into number 2. So 1 is really mute as well.
Is someone able to do the math to see of the remaining items?
Saying 7 is moved, but 7 is the salary restriction.
Michael Thompson, Deputy CFO. A removal of $44 million would have to be funded. And I'm not sure how you all would like to fund a $44 million gap.
So it's not in the budget, you're just saying that, I mean, your point was that it was, okay, all right. I'll pass it back to you, Chair.
All right, Commissioner Mills.
Thank you. All right, two things. One, it's not in the sheriff's budget, but you say, the administration is saying that it is in the sheriff's budget, these funds, correct? Some of them, not all of them. I think we were on 3 and 2. They're in the sheriff's budget. But CAO Lindsay is not seeing them. Is that correct?
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. Yes, Commissioner Mills, no, I am not seeing these things in our budget. So Director Thompson did show me a couple of positions that were like funded at the 40,500, but that's, not all of them were there. And then not all of the positions were budgeted as step 1. Director Thompson mentioned something about a sweep process. I guess I'd like to have a written document on when this body codified that process so that it can be implemented, if that's a procedure that was adopted by this body.
Okay. So I think there's a trust factor here, and then, it's their livelihood with their jobs to let the money be there. So I think that needs to be rectified. And that should be pretty easy, I would think, to save a lot of time, I would think. But then again, I could be wrong looking at the look on your face.
Well, I think that is Michael Thompson, Deputy CFO. In various emails last week, we worked with CO Lindsay to try to understand how to address these items. And to my understanding, many of them were addressed. At some point, the conversations broke down, and I received an email that she wanted to come before you all. And that was as of Friday. I'm happy to provide that email to you all, because we were communicating quite well last week, and somewhere the conversations broke down.
Okay. Moving on from that, my big concern, this is the big concern for me, sitting here as a county commissioner, is the $44 million salary restriction because of House Bill 306 that just passed. Because now 307 passed, 306 failed. Okay, so I got my numbers reversed. That's the one that bothers me here the most, that gives me the most heartburn, that we could be sued if we don't fund the $44 million.
Ms. Ingram, you want to address 307? From my, Gerald Thornton, Director of Human Resources, again, I'm not practicing law for the Shelby County government. However, 307 had very little impact upon Shelby County because we are charter officers, which gave them back some of their constitutional duties. It did not say that they have some additional duties or responsibilities. Based upon the 2010 passage of the law, their constitutional duties were not taken away from them. They were called charter officers, which created the term limits. So 307, which I've spoke to both the assessor's office as well as to CTASC, did not give any additional duties or responsibilities to our elected officials.
So it doesn't give them the authority to now sue if they don't get their
I don't think the
MOE?
sheriff ever lost his responsibility to sue. But I'll be quiet after that.
I would love to be wrong on that. I would love to be wrong. Good. Attorney Ingram, do you have anything?
Morris Ingram, County Attorney's Office. If the sheriff wanted to sue, he has authority to sue us. 307 did not give any additional right to sue.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Mills, for your questions, and Ms. Ingram for your answers. Are wanting to try to move us along. Are there any additional questions around number 3 or statements?
Point of information.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so once we get through with this, are we going to vote on any of these today, or are we just going to just?
No votes are taken today. This is
Okay.
clearly just working in session around Q&A so that
Okay.
we can be prepared for Wednesday.
Thank
Because
you.
these items will be back up again.
Another question. Okay, will we be voting on them as a group or individually? And we can bifurcate them on Wednesday,
You
correct?
absolutely can
Thank
bifurcate
you.
them.
Thank you.
Ms. Ingram, can you please read item number 4, please?
Item 4, Fund ASME MOU salary adjustments to align with the Deputy Sheriff's Association, DSA, salary schedule, enabling correction deputies to top out in 3 years instead of 5 years. Total, $1,265,277.16.
Ms. Lindsay, and then I will go to you, Director Thornton.
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. I need to go back to item number 3 for a second because there was a procedure, a budget procedure mentioned, and I've requested that the Sheriff's Office get a copy of where this body codified the sweep procedure for the Shelby County Sheriff's Office. So now, item number 4. So we presented an item to you on June 4th that aligns the corrections deputies with the Deputy Sheriff's Association for them to top out in 3 years instead of 5. That totals $1,265,277.16.
Gerald Thornton, Director of Human Resources. Procedurally speaking, the sheriff, as well as the CAO, Chief Administrative Officer Alicia Lindsay, Shelby County Sheriff Department, this matter has to actually go before this honorable board for approval of an MOU because it has a fiscal impact. This board has not voted in the MOU. And so therefore, you can't address this issue until you all are presented with the MOU and the codified language that that was agreed upon without the input of HR, and then we can take this under advisement. But the reason why I make all those statements is because, if you recall, you all also passed a resolution, or maybe it's an ordinance, where there's, I think it's an ordinance, Commissioner Sugarman, where you have pay parity for Shelby County Corrections officers. So whatever you all do here, whether it's number 2 or number 4, it has an impact upon the corrections officers, not just correction deputies, but corrections officers, because you all passed an ordinance, thank you, where it says what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I guess, and we call it Me Too clause in my level. So if you increase this $1,265,000, I'm not necessarily in opposition to it. I'm not saying they don't deserve it. But remember, there's going to be another $1 million or so that you're going to look at when it comes to corrections officers. Also, whatever the 2% increase that the sheriff may give to his public safety employees, that impact also has impact upon the corrections officers. And also keep in mind now, when it comes to public safety, I'm also getting a call from the Firefighters Association as well, because although we have a Me Too clause for corrections officers and corrections deputies, we have unintentionally left off the firefighters, paramedics, and the dispatchers as well. So when you vote this in, if you vote this in, this impact could be roughly $5 million. And again, I'm not opposed to it. That's what the sheriff agreed to, since he's an independent elected official. But it will have a significant impact upon the budget, upon those other departments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thornton. Commissioner Wright, you're in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would say, given that we do have that ordinance passed, that I would request of the administration to have that matching total available, so we can have that accurate figure when we revisit this. And any of those similar measures, it's sort of like when we've got one that's the DA and the public defender. That's a known ratio, but we need to have that available.
Ms. Lindsay?
Thank you. Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. It would really be helpful if we could follow along through the motion. But last week, we withdrew item number 6. Okay? And then I heard Director Thornton state that both items number 2 and 4 would impact other agencies. Item number 2 would not. Because basically what we're just asking you to do is to align our positions to step 1. So that has no impact because their position should already be at step 1 or whatever step that should be. This is just to the Shelby County Sheriff's Office. As it relates to item number 4, On June 4th, we brought that resolution before the Budget and Subcommittee to both ratify and approve the MOU with AFSCME. So I was expecting to see that on the June 18th Budget Committee meeting, but it is not there. I have reached out to CL Clay Perry and have not received a response. So I was expecting that that item would be on the June 18th Budget Committee meeting. Thank you.
Are you referring to, Ms. Lindsay, are you referring to the actual MOU?
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Commissioner Bibbs, I'm referring to the item that approves and ratifies the AFSCME MOU economic changes. That item was brought on June 4th.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Gerald Thornton, Director of Human Resources, but the item was not voted on. This board has to vote either up or down on the ratification or the approval of MOU. Although the resolution was presented, but you all have not taken this matter into a vote. So therefore, it's kind of premature until you get the vote in place, and then we can address the economic items that have been agreed upon.
Thank you, Mr. Thornton. Commissioner Brooks, you're in the queue.
Just a point of clarification, Madam Chair, to Commissioner Wright's point where he compared the public defender and the DA. It's a little bit different because that's in statute. This is not a MOU. It's not legally binding. That's between the Sheriff's Office and the AFSCME employees. Not saying I'm for or against it. It's just we need to keep it in the right lane. So we're not statutorily required to act on it.
Commissioner Wright.
Madam Chair, I was speaking to Commissioner Brooks's question or statement. I was speaking to the ordinance that I think Sugarman sponsored, to where whatever we're spending on the jail side gets matched on the corrections side.
I know, but you mentioned, you just brought in the DA and the public defender. So I just want to make sure that we separate that because we can't compare, statutory with non-statutory.
Okay.
Legally binding and non-legally binding.
Thank you, Commissioner Brooks. Thank you, Commissioner Wright. My question at this point, though, is for Ms. Ingram to answer the issue regarding the MOU and for Mr. Thornton's statement. So if the MOU is on our agenda for the 18th, which I will work with CAO Perry to make sure that's where it should be. So is it possible to vote for the MOU the same day and then have another amendment with a dollar amount to it? Or do they have to be at separate times?
Marcy Ingram, County Attorney's Office. Madam Chair, it could be both dates because the budget wouldn't be adopted until June 23rd or later. So as long as it occurs before you vote on the final budget, then that's fine.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, I think we're at the point now we can move on to item number 5. Ms. Ingram, item number 5.
Item 5, provide a 3% salary increase for all Shelby County Sheriff's Office SCSO positions, total $5,452,075.88.
Ms. Lindsay?
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. So through today's meeting, we still haven't seen where the mayor's administration is saying that all of these things are in the budget. Right, so items number 2, number 3, and I know number 4 you have to vote on, and even the number 5, because I think you stepped out of the room when we talked about that there's only a $2.4 million variance, and if you divide that by the fiscal year 2025 5102 account, that is only 1.8% increase. And what the administration is saying that it's only on field positions, but again, we're talking about all of our positions that are vacant, that are related to a MOU, should include a 3% increase, whether they're field or vacant. And I know the administration made a comment about there's a sweep, but there's also a way to deal with that. Not that I'm recommending, but it could also be offset by a vacancy savings. I just want to make sure that our 5102 account number equals what our position control budget should be. And at this point, the two numbers agree, but the positions are not always at step 1. And so until I can see that all the positions are at step 1, that they all include a $40,501.25 base amount, and then for those positions that are covered by an MOU, they also get a 3% increase on top of that, because those MOUs state that those employees should receive the same general increase as any other county employee.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Lindsay. Deputy Director Thompson.
Michael Thompson, Deputy CFO, Shelby County Government. Ms. Lindsay, well, CO Lindsay has the team budget software where she can go in and produce for you all the positions that she's talking about. If she produces that information and presents it to you and is not accurate, I'm happy to work with her to get that fixed. But she can produce that information because she has access to team budget, and I think that'll be a really good step for you all to request that she produce what's inside a team budget. Then that way we can go through position by position and ensure that everything is as CO Lindsay would like. It's one thing I would not recommend. I would not recommend that we put 3% on vacant positions. I would not recommend that. If it's filled, I would highly recommend that we do not do that for vacant positions.
Commissioner Ford, you're in the queue.
One question for the sheriff. I'm waiting until we get to number 7. Would the tacking on the 3%, I'm talking to you as the head law enforcement official for Shelby County, who would know the best way to recruit and retain law enforcement, would that 3% tacked on to those particular salaries help you recruit and retain law enforcement? And have you had challenges because of the salaries not being at a particular threshold? That's my question.
Floyd Bonner, Shelby County Sheriff's. I think, Commissioner, what Mr. Thompson was saying is a little bit different. He's saying not put the 3% in until we hire. My question would be then, where do we get the money from if you're not going to put the positions in there before we ever hire anyone? Do we come back over and ask the administration to put the money in the positions? Or I mean, I don't understand how that works.
Well, I can understand. I can explain it a little bit. Well, let me add this piece because you can go ahead and piggyback on it because we talked about this before. My thing is, if it's going to be there and help recruit and retain, then if it's not there, then where is it going to be at? I know that last year there was almost $17 million worth of unspent salary that I know did come back, but it wasn't just your office. It was the administration as well, but nobody wants to talk about that. As a matter of fact, they had more unspent salary that came back. So I agree with you. The only thing I'm trying to see is if we need to put it there, then you all do what you do in your office to recruit and retain law enforcement. I wouldn't want it not to be there, and then we're in the budget, the new budget, and then you're coming back like you usually do and ask for little bitty things, and you barely get the scraps that are up on the. I don't even want to talk about the jail, and the jail's not even on here. Maybe it's not on here because you know how some of the people up on this body respond to the needs in contrast to the wants. That's all I'm asking. I was asking about the recruiting and the retaining, but I think we're in the same spot. But Ms. Lindsay can have my 36 seconds.
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. Commissioners, I just want everyone to understand that positions that are covered by MOU, they have a special salary schedule. So if you don't provide a 3% increase to the vacant positions, then when we go to hire someone and bring them on board, that money is not there. And if we have to get the money from another position, then that takes time. And also with the payroll demands, trying to meet the payroll deadlines, it becomes an inefficient and ineffective way to do it. And then if you don't put the 3% in the vacant positions, then we're right back where we're at today with our positions not being fully funded in fiscal year 2025. Thank you.
Commissioner Brooks, you're in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for clarity and understanding, going back to the MOU and what Ms. Lindsay said, so individuals who are hired, are they automatically included in an MOU, or do they have to be a member of a union in order to be included in the MOU?
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. No, they don't have to be a member of the a member of the bargaining unit. It's just that they have a special salary schedule for those positions. For example, corrections deputies. Step 1 for a correction deputy, because you have to pay them all the same amount when they come on board. And then they may eventually become part of a union, but that step 1 amount for fiscal year 2025 is $48,543.33. And if there's a 3% increase provided, we can't bring people in at 48,543.36 because the salary schedule changes. HR will change the salary schedule by 3%.
So you're saying that all the new employees that come in will be automatically covered under the MOU salary schedule? That's
Alicia
what I'm
Lindsay,
trying to understand.
yes, ma'am. They will
Okay.
be covered by the special salary schedule for that type of position,
Under the MOU?
under the MOU.
Okay.
And so we have several MOUs that I want everyone to understand. We have ASME, we have IBEW, we have Deputy Sheriff's Association, and AFSME. So all of those MOUs or unions, they have special salary schedules. So that 3% needs to be included in their positions.
Okay. I got something running through my head here. Okay, I'll come back.
Thank you, Commissioner Brooks. I don't see any additional commissioners in queue regarding this item number. So we will move on to 6 was.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Brooks.
I'm trying to understand this because I'm looking at and thinking about some of the other electeds who come before us, and they come before us for additional employees. So, and we either approve it or not. How is this different, aside from the MOU?
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. I really can't speak to how it would be different for another elected official.
The underlying concept is the same. You know, they have there's a vacancy, okay? And the vacancy was in the budget. So they're coming forth after the consolidated budget has been passed to get that feel. So I'm trying to understand, how would this be different?
Okay, I think I understand your question. Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. So Shelby County government has a salary matrix where it has the entry level, the middle level, and the maximum pay that you can pay someone. And I'm not real familiar with that. I think I want to turn it over to our Human Resources Director or either the Shelby County Government's Director, how compensation is set. The reason it's different for the Shelby County Sheriff's Office when we have these special salary schedules is we know what that individual is going to earn because it's on the special salary schedule.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Brooks. I don't see any additional commissioners in queue regarding number 5. Number 6 was withdrawn, so we're now on to number 7. Ms. Ingram.
Item 7, remove the $44,308,845,000 salary restriction from the FY 2026 SCSO budget and make the following adjustments. Temporary wages, $332,500. Health insurance fringe benefit corrections, $3,951,798.46. Related fringe benefits, $146,737.68. Remove carry forward expenditures and incumbents budget amounts, $0. Total for item 6, $48,593,143.46.
Thank you, Ms. Ingram. Commissioner Wright, are you in the queue? Okay, Ms. Lindsay.
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. And again, I just want to preface my comments on, we were reconciling what we submitted to the mayor's administration and what came out in the proposed document. However, with item number 1, the $44 million, we did not include a salary restriction or vacancy savings in our submitted budget. So in prior years, that amount has been roughly, 1 second. So in fiscal year 2023, our salary restriction was 27,294,547. In fiscal year 2024, that number was 32,696,086. And I don't want to, go back and forth about what happened in fiscal year 2025, but we walked out of that meeting, I forget what day, I want to say it was June 2nd, thinking our salary restriction was one amount. To our surprise, it was increased by another $11 million. And so that is not sustainable to our office. And that's one of the reasons why we included zero for a salary restriction in the budget that we submitted. And then basically the other items were just reconciling what was in the budget that we submitted to what was in the version that came out with the mayor's office. And so there were some differences with temporary wages and health insurance and related benefits. So that's the best that I can explain that.
Commissioner Wright.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so I wanted to ask and to sort of follow up on what Chairman Whaley had said about the, basically, are we looking at this 40, I guess the 44 million in particular, is that something that you all have budgeted for for particular uses? Or is it sort of something that's more of a reserve? Or can you speak to more how that will be used?
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. This is not something we typically budget. Normally, it comes from the mayor's administration via the budget, the adopted budget resolution. There is a clause in that resolution that says that the administration has the right or the ability to allocate salary restrictions. There's not a conversation about what your vacancy savings are or what your salary restrictions has been or what it should be. And then we end up with an arbitrary amount assigned to us, which is not sustainable for our office. If you look at our budget for the current year, through June 13th, we've already spent about $25 million in overtime. Our overtime budget is $11.7 million. So when you look at it one way, you say, oh, well, you have all these vacant positions, but then you also have overtime because the work still has to be done. Whether you have additional bodies or not, we're still paying overtime. So that's just something that we need to look at a little bit differently. And yeah, we need to look at that differently.
I guess what I'm trying to ask is, will this amount result in more deputies being hired, or will it result in us just better able to cover that overtime, or will it fund additional services or additional contracts? Like what do we get for this amount? I'm speaking in particular of the 44 million. 44 and change.
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. Yes, we believe it will help us with overtime. We believe it will help us hire additional officers, and it will definitely improve the operations of the Shelby County Sheriff's Office. And I want to go back to, if you look at our current budget through June 13th, our actual expenditures, and if you project out one more payroll, we're barely going to have $795,000 left. So we're crossing our fingers to make sure that we make personnel budget.
Deputy Director Thompson, and then I'll go to the commissioners that are in the queue.
Michael Thompson, Deputy CFO, Shelby County Government. I just wanted to make sure I understood what CO Lindsay was saying. So you will have met and exceeded your vacancy savings amount by $795,000 or no?
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. Yes, to answer your question, yes, but there's still a payroll accrual that has to be made, so we don't know if we're going to meet that or not.
Michael Thompson, Deputy CFO, Shelby County Government. Commissioner Wright, your question was a good one. The vacancy savings amount is exactly what it says. It's a amount of money that is not currently being used by any particular department or office. And as Commissioner Whaley had mentioned, it's a way to not have to put a burden on our taxpayers for funding that we know will not be used in the fiscal year. I think it'll be good for you all to request from the Sheriff's Department an analysis of their vacancy savings amount and how much they have exceeded. And I would only not do this year, I would go in past years as well. I think CO Lindsay could provide you further insight into how much the Sheriff's Department is saving and underspending.
Thank you. Commissioner Sugarman, you're in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so I'm very curious about overtime. And I would like for y'all to do an analysis for me as far as overtime. I'm curious if you can give me the dollar amount for overtime for the past 5 years. And then also the increase in number of positions and in what area. For example, has the increase been for the number of jailers, deputies, et cetera? Because if we're stagnant, in other words, you have the same number of deputies or the same number of jailers, however, the overtime's increasing, that's one thing. But if you increase the number of jailers as well as deputies and the overtime is still increasing, then that's a concern. So if you could just tell me, number one, where the overtime is occurring over the past 5 years, as well as retirees, where areas are they coming from as well? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sugarman. Commissioner Ford, you're in the queue.
Finally, on number 7, I'm gonna be getting in more than one time, so I'm gonna let you know in advance. Look, members of this body are asking you, Sheriff, to compromise and to work this out. I predicted that in our phone call. I said, that's exactly what's gonna happen, and I wish I wrote on a piece of paper which individuals up here were gonna say that to you. Because I was 100% correct. You've been asked to do that for the last 3 years. I know. And what has that gotten you? To Ms. Lindsay's point, it's gotten you over $100 million of salary restrictions for you to compromise and work it out. So if you compromise and work it out, which is code for fall on your knees to the county mayor, you might not have a $50 million salary restriction. Ms. Lindsay, when we talked, I said, watch you have a $50 or $51 million salary restriction. I was spot on 50.8 proposed. That means over the last 4 fiscal years, this would be over $150 million of salary restrictions if that part of the proposed budget passes. Bottom line, the budgets that have been presented in front of us and passed have been balanced off of the sheriff's budget. The swelling of the salary restrictions is not normal when you go back over the last 6 years. If you go back to FY 2019, all the way to 21-22, you will see a flat salary restriction number. In 2021, it was less than $14 million. It was the lowest, and we had the most in our fund balance, and that was the last time we adhered to our fund balance policy. New commission came on, wheels fell off, axles, everything else. But they want you to compromise and work it out, Sheriff. What has that gotten you? When you come in front of us and ask for these items, you wouldn't have to ask for any of these things if we went back to how it was in 2021. Now, I'm going to say this in my next 3 minutes, but, we wouldn't be talking about these if your salary restrictions over the last X amount of years. I mean, $150 million worth of salary restriction request. I know the appointed is about to say what's needed, notwithstanding the commentary that may come in place. I do not believe that that person has the qualifications to run law enforcement in Shelby County. And depending on what is said, I do have my notes right here on the other item that I want to bring up. So let's just see what happens. And Ms. Lindsay, I'm using the numbers that came from the finance office during those last few years. So just in case some adjectives and other things are used, I would ask that person to be very careful on the commentary and to keep it factual, because on record and nothing was done. Watch the adjectives and other things. Because I don't need anybody to point of order if he's out of line. Thank you.
Deputy Director Thompson.
Michael Thompson, Deputy CFO, Shelby County Government. It is incorrect to state that salary restrictions were over $100 million. In this method of accounting, you do not cumulatively add those numbers together. So to spread that upon the record is totally incorrect. I would like to clear the record up to say that anytime you talk about a salary restriction or vacancy savings, you must mention it on an individual fiscal year basis. It is improper to add those numbers together.
Madam Chair, could I say something?
Sheriff Bonner.
Shelby County Sheriff Floyd Bonner. Again, Mr. Thompson came up and he made all these assumptions that my office would return money. We hadn't talked about a disaster that we never, ever, ever hoped would happen here in Memphis. Civil unrest that we hope never, ever would happen here. But these are things that do occur. So for them to raise money or take money from us, saying that we're not going to use it, Mr. Thompson doesn't know that. He's not the sheriff. He's not even in law enforcement. So for them to say that we're going to give all this money back, and since I've been the sheriff in 2018, the money that we hadn't used, we have given back to this body readily, and we would continue to do so. But you cannot tell us, or he can't even say in a crystal ball what's going to happen in our community. We don't know that. So to cut, and keep cutting and saying this is where the sheriff's office is going to come in on, or guess where we're going to come in, it's impossible, absolutely impossible.
Director Tipton.
Thank you. Audrey Tipton, Director of Administration and Finance. Excuse me, losing my voice. I just wanted to state that the salary or vacancy savings is based on how much a department or an elected official spends over a period of time. If over a period of time, they continually do not utilize the budget that was given to them, then the vacancy savings is adjusted. This is how we've looked at the sheriff's budget. Continually, year after year, they have returned budget back for salaries. They have met and exceeded the vacancy savings that is there. So to say that we are taking money is incorrect. Their actuals, I'm not a law enforcement officer, but I am a finance professional. And I know when I look at actuals being paid out versus what is budgeted, and I see a variance there, then I know that we are budgeting and funding for positions that do not exist. This is how we're using the taxpayers' dollars. We're simply budgeting and financing the positions that are filled, and the ones that are not being filled, which we now know there are over 700 positions in the sheriff's office that are not filled, that have not been brought to this body to be filled and not funded. That has not occurred. I have not seen one day where a position was brought to this body and we did not fund it. So to say that we are stopping them is incorrect. And I can't let that go down and say we are taking the money away. We are not taking the money away.
Thank you, Director Tipton. Commissioner Ford, you're back in the queue.
Look, I'm only using the word that finance used on Wednesday. And last time, and we can go back and look at the tape, and you know about tapes. Come on back and have a sit down. I'm only using their word. So, you know, I'm just going to simply say this. In FY21, salary restrictions were $13.7 million. We took care of employees. We took care of business and everything else. And the sheriff's folks did not have to come and ask for things that are statutorily required. We're taking a lot of time to talk about one particular division, but we're not talking about at all. My thing is, if we are able to not fine tune, but go with a fine comb under the sheriff's fingernails on this budget, we should do the same thing for the administration. So if they're going to talk all of this, that should give the license for us to discuss their maintenance of effort, period, and the monies that have come back. But it sounds as if, no, we can't talk about that. We can only talk about this because this has been used over the last years, and I'm going to say it. As the elected, I am going to say it. When the last time we had our budget right, with all due respect, the people that are the CFO and deputy CFO, they either were not in those positions or they were not employees of Shelby County government. The last time we were in compliance with our fund balance, Matilda Crosby was the CFO. And you had a great CAO, Mr. Leach, who handled business, and you're doing a good job as well. You just got more stuff that you got to deal with, unfortunately. So all I know is, at the end of the day, I have the full right to look at what has happened over years, and if I would like to add those years up, I have the right to do so. It is your opinion whether I can add, subtract, multiply, or divide. All I know is the last time the budget was right, there was another CFO and deputies didn't exist. So whatever commentary may want to be said on that, I know for a fact where we were. And I know what has happened over time to where, Sheriff, I'm going to say this is my last 6 seconds. I'm going to support and try to find funding for everything that you got on here. And it's a shame that we used to be in a good place in 2021, but now we're not because other folks have their opinions, and those opinions did not exist when everything was right. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Commissioner Ford. I just want to verify that you're not back in the queue, obviously.
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, Director Tipton.
Thank you, Audrey Tipton, Director of Finance Administration. I did want to state also the $6.5 million that was added to the vacancy savings for the sheriffs was agreed upon by the Sheriff's Department and the administration in order to support the YJET.
Thank you, Director Tipton.
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. We haven't agreed to anything. No, I wasn't. No, so we're not aware of an agreement of a 6.5 million going to juvenile court.
So, I don't see any additional commissioners in queue regarding item number 7. Ms. Ingram, if you can read item number 8.
Item 8, fund additional priority operational needs as submitted by the SCSO, including uniforms, inmate food, software and technology upgrades, recruiting and advertising, counseling services, and overtime, noting YTD expenditures of $22.1 million versus a budget of $11.7 million. Total, $16,329,926.03.
Thank you, Ms. Ingram. Ms. Lindsay?
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. We submitted 16 million. This is Exhibit D. You have two versions. One is by budget modification number, and one is by object. But the total is, 16.3 million, 16,329,926.03. And Exhibit D indicates whether it is a statutory requirement or a contractual obligation. For example, We have some contracts, say for example, the food service contract, the building security contract, those have automatic increases every year. We put those in as contractually obligated. We have some expenditures planned such as service weapons for officers that is statutorily required. The officers must have uniforms. And then overtime, as I mentioned, our overtime budget is only 11.7 million. Year-to-date, through June 13th, we've spent about 24 million. We also have to provide apparel for prisoners, bedding and linen for prisoners. You know, once you buy it, it doesn't last forever. Kitchen and dining supplies. So there are several items that we provided budget modifications for, and none of those items were included in the fiscal year 2026 proposed budget.
Thank you, Ms. Lindsay. Commissioner Thornton?
Thank you, Chair. I'm looking at the unspent funds graph that we were provided. So is it my understanding that every year we're increasing our maintenance of efforts? Or can you just talk to, as we interpret this data, what is it saying about the maintenance of effort?
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. Are you referring to the schedule that Director Thompson distributed?
Yes, so 2016 through 24.
So this doesn't have the salary, well, it does have the budget for the maintenance of effort. This doesn't have the net budget. This is the total operating budget, not just personnel. So the maintenance of effort is on personnel. I do have a schedule. I didn't bring a lot of copies, but going back to fiscal year 2021, our personnel maintenance of effort was 161 million. 2020 was 161 million. 2021 was 162 million. 2022, it went down to 161 million. Then in 2023, it went up to 162 million. 2024, it is at 171 million 229. And then in 2025, it's 172 million 749.76. But in the fiscal year 2026 proposed budget by the mayor's administration, it went down by $32,000. I have it.
Okay, so a couple of interesting things that you just mentioned. So when it goes in 2022, when it went down, what was the, I guess, consequence of not meeting the maintenance of efforts? Or I thought this was something that if we didn't hit that standard, that there would be some type of repercussion.
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. I was not here during that time, and I don't know if the Sheriff's Administration paid much attention to the maintenance of effort, but now it is such a big deal. And thank you, Director Thompson, for this, but you didn't include fiscal year 2025 on here, which I think is about a 20% or 25% net of the vacancy savings.
You can put that in there.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner, I'm sorry, you have 29 seconds. Are you still on?
No, I'm done.
You're
Thank
done? Okay. Commissioner Sugarman?
Okay, and so thank you for the information, and thank you, Acting Chair Brooks. So the question then becomes the breakdown as far as the uniforms, inmate food, software, technology upgrades, and recruiting, advertising, counseling, and services, and overtime. And so again, we hear overtime again. So what is the difference between this overtime and the overtime you spoke about previously? Number one. And then also as far as the inmate food, looking at the budget, the proposed budget versus the what was in the budget for last year, it seemed like it was flat. But, so again, if you could just address each of these, have they gone up? I know we do have contracts, and so we have to make sure those contracts are covered. So if you just give a dollar amount for each one, and then also explain the difference between the overtime here and the overtime that you mentioned before.
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. I'll start with overtime. As I mentioned, our overtime budget is $11.7 million. Year-to-date, we've spent $24 million. our budget modification is a request of 8.2 million for additional overtime budget, just so that our budget and our actuals will align. So if you have an $11.7 million budget and you have expenditures of 25 million, you don't have enough in your overtime budget. So that is to align. And I'll have to refer to this budget modification book to give you the amounts. And again, the proposed budget that we submitted is a little different than what the mayor's administration passed out. We started budgeting in Oracle EPM. They ended up with a team budget presentation to you all. That's the whole purpose of reconciling the items, because they're not the same. Basically, they took items, my assumption is that they took items from gyms in fiscal year 2025 and just prepared a budget document for fiscal year 2026, whereas we methodically, painstakingly went into Oracle EPM and budgeted accordingly of what we needed in each division, section, department, object. So it's a little different. So it may appear to be flat in the proposed budget that was submitted, but that is not, that the mayor's administration presented, but that is not what we submitted.
Thank you. So I'll go back and look at the modifications.
Excuse me. Seeing no other members in the queue, did the administration have something that they want to conclude with? Okay, the Sheriff's Department, Ms. Lindsay, Sheriff Bonner.
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. We also have a motion on CIP for the jail design, et cetera. So I don't know if you want to entertain that today or another day, because
No, ma'am. Well, no, not today. I think today was just devoted to the motion to amend FY '26, what we moved over from Wednesday. Okay. So we'll have to schedule a time with the Chair of Law Enforcement to deal with that. Sheriff Bonner.
Yes, ma'am, Commissioner. First of all, I'd like to thank each and every one of you. I know we've been here for a long, long time and going over and back and forth, but I appreciate your attentiveness in all of this. We feel like that, just as the administration, we feel like we're right, and I guess they feel like they're wrong. They could be, or we're wrong. But we're trying to fix our budget. We're trying to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. As I've said, when I was elected in 2018, I know I've been a good steward of the taxpayers' money. I've given money back, money that we did not use, but for someone in administration to predict where we're going to be, it's no way. I couldn't even predict it, Commissioner. I hope that things doesn't happen, but if they do, then we've got to be prepared and need to respond. So we just ask that if all of you go through our presentation, go through what we're asking for, and please consider it. Thank you.
Thank you, and I know all the commissioners will do their due diligence, and please believe and let the public know that there is no question about, you being a good steward of taxpayer dollars. We all strive to do that. We thank you for that. We thank the administration. I just believe, as I said earlier, there may be some differences in your processes. There may be some misinformation or misinterpretation of information, and that's why conversation, sitting down and talking about the business, it's not personal, it's business. Just sit down and talk about the business and try to get it ironed out, and I know you can do it, okay? Well, listen, thank you all so much, and this special session, a working session, is now adjourned.